left only because I felt the need to start my production company. That was the only reason. It was
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people think it was scandal. People love to say I was fired. It's all
But
these
you know,
rumors.
so you wasn't fired.
I was never
It
fired.
wasn't the scandal.
It was not a scandal.
It wasn't one of the girls or any of the girls.
No girl ever said Carlos on the show. Like, it was never none of that. But that's the thing, and you know me. Listen, this could be a bad thing or not.
Okay.
I don't feel the need to defend myself publicly.
Carlos King is finally breaking his silence, but what he said has left fans confused and asking more questions. His words have raised eyebrows, and now people are looking back at old interviews, questioning what's really going on. It's become so messy that it's like a dramatic reunion table flip. To understand what's happening, we need to look at the timeline of events, which will make you wonder who's telling the truth and who's just covering their tracks. Carlos King has always carried himself like he was in charge, especially when it came to the Love and Marriage franchise. In his earlier interviews and many Instagram live sessions, he spoke about the show with a level of authority that made it seem like he was the one calling the shots.
Just reminded me that you can't focus on the noise of the outside world. And unfortunately, a lot of people do. A lot of people focus on the noise, and a lot of people enter the dark space of the noise to benefit them. And when you are a person who lives your life with good grace, good intentions, and a good heart, no person, place, or thing can infiltrate your life.
Fans quickly noticed this and paid attention to the way he talked about cast members, almost as if he had handpicked them himself. He spoke about people like Stormy Steele, Destiny Payton, and Miss Wanda as though he had discovered them, like they were characters he had written into the storyline. The way Carlos spoke about Stormy, in particular, was revealing. He didn't just compliment her, he went into detail about why she was perfect for the show. He talked about her business savvy, her personality, and how well she fit into the Huntsville dynamic. This didn't sound like casual praise. It sounded like he was talking about someone he had intentionally cast. And when fans started asking questions about why certain people stayed on the show, even after receiving criticism, Carlos never corrected the assumption that he had the power to make those decisions. In fact, he even joked during a live session that someone didn't make the cut because they lacked star quality. This further convinced viewers that Carlos was the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. He built a reputation for himself as the kingmaker, someone who made stars and gave them a platform. For a long time, no one questioned this narrative, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. But things took a dramatic turn when Martell Holt's legal troubles made headlines. Martell was arrested for harassment, and fans immediately called for him to be removed from the show. They took to social media, demanding that Carlos make a statement or at least take some action. After all, he was the face of the show, so naturally, people looked to him for answers.
Keep it all the way real on this podcast today because I am pissed. Robin admitting that she hid her story from the world on the show that pays you is a slap in the face to everyone involved, including the audience. And the fact that you have the audacity to go on your podcast to reveal this. We spent this entire half-assed season with these made-up storylines about Chris Bassett. And yes, I'm gonna say made up because I allegedly was told that a few of the housewives had a meeting before filming about what the storyline was going to be, and that this Chris Bassett stuff was part of that conversation. I've always said there was something off about this season, and now I know what it is. None of y'all are living your real life.
Would Carlos cut Martell from the cast? Would he address the situation head-on? But this is where things started to get unclear. Carlos appeared on several platforms, including DJ Richie Sky's YouTube channel, Claudia Jordan's interview, and his own podcast, and his tone had completely changed. Suddenly, he was saying that he didn't have the power to hire or fire anyone. He explained that OWN, the network, was in charge of casting. According to him, his production company, Kingdom Reign Entertainment, could suggest people, but the final decision was made by the network. This shocked many fans because it was the same Carlos who had talked so confidently about casting choices in the past. Now, when the pressure was on and viewers were demanding action, he claimed to be a middleman. This sudden shift raised a lot of questions. If Carlos didn't have control over casting, then why did he speak for years as though he did? Why did he act like he was the one curating the cast? Why did he seem so sure of who was worthy of airtime? Fans started pulling up old clips of Carlos, including his Instagram lives and podcast episodes, where he spoke with such authority about cast members. The difference between those moments and his recent interviews, where he deflects responsibility, made people suspicious. Something wasn't adding up. Either Carlos was exaggerating his power in the past, or he was downplaying it now to protect himself. Then, just when it seemed like the Carlos King controversy was reaching its peak, OWN stepped in with a statement that only raised more questions.
We have to work harder to get what we deserve, right? And I was such a huge part of that, along with other producers and everybody else involved too. But I moved to Atlanta to do that show because I was invested in making it #1.
In response to growing speculation about who really made the casting decisions, a spokesperson from OWN made it clear that the network makes the final call on who is cast. According to them, producers, including Carlos, can suggest talent, but the final decision is always up to the network. This was a major shift in the narrative. It meant that Carlos didn't have the power to remove people from the show, even if fans had thought otherwise. OWN's statement referenced situations like the one with Kenya Moore, where the network allegedly stepped in and decided not to move forward with her involvement. This added a new layer to the story. It seemed to imply that producers, including Carlos, don't have full control over casting, which is a major contradiction to how Carlos had presented himself for years. But then it raised another question: why did OWN allow Carlos to take credit for these decisions for so long? Why did the network let him build his brand around being the mastermind behind the show? It only now that OWN is stepping in to clarify roles, which makes the whole situation even more confusing. Court documents from ongoing legal battles between former cast members and production companies have shown that Carlos's company, Kingdom Reign Entertainment, does have some level of influence over casting. While it may not have the final say, it's clear that Carlos and his team play a direct role in recruitment, interviews, and deciding who is worthy of being on the show. So now, we have OWN pointing fingers at Carlos deflecting responsibility to the network, and the cast stuck somewhere in between.
I always say if I had a time machine, I would go back to those moments. Like, I wouldn't do anything to help the world. I would go back to those moments to be in a restaurant and see the table flip. Just a background actor, you know?
Yes, no, listen, it was a hit of its time. And once again, we had no idea it was going to be such an iconic moment that was going to occur. So here I am, again, a junior producer, having the responsibility of making sure Danielle Staub had the book. Danielle wore a little black dress. She hands me the book upon arrival. I'm the only male producer amongst this female producing team. And they said, are you able to handle the book? I'm like, I can do it, but I can't. And this is season 1 back in 2009. There was no breaking the fourth wall. It was unheard of. So I have this book, this hard.
Fans were quick to notice these contradictions. They started rewatching old clips from Carlos's Instagram lives, interviews, and even his own reality show podcast. In these older clips, Carlos spoke about being selective with cast members, turning down people who weren't authentic, and pushing for certain personalities because he knew what the show needed. That didn't sound like someone who was just sending names to the network. That sounded like someone who was actually curating the cast. Viewers flooded the comments with questions like, if OWN picks the cast, why does Carlos always act like he made the show what it is? And so you're telling me Carlos was just the messenger this whole time? Even some cast members have said on record that Carlos played a significant role in their casting. Melody Holt has said that Carlos approached her and Martell with the idea for the show. Stormy Steele has mentioned in interviews that Carlos was the one who reached out to her about joining. Destiny Payton also talked about how Carlos convinced her that reality TV was the right move for her. These are not second-hand accounts, these are direct quotes from people who were actually on the show. So, if Carlos was just suggesting people to the network, why were these cast members working so hard to stay on his good side? Why were they publicly thanking him, not OWN, when they got screen time or praise? It's a simple question, but it hits hard. If Carlos had no say in casting, why do all these cast members act like he does? These aren't small contradictions, they're big gaps in the story that make it seem like someone is trying to clean up the mess after the fact. Now that we've laid out the inconsistencies, the big question is, what's really going on here? Let's look at a few possible scenarios. Scenario 1. Carlos did have casting control but stepped back once the legal heat turned up. Before Martel's legal issues, Carlos was front and center, making bold statements, hinting at upcoming cast members, and acting like he was steering the ship. But once Martel's arrest made headlines, Carlos suddenly shifted his stance, saying he didn't have the final say in casting. This shift wasn't subtle, it was as if a switch flipped. For fans paying attention, it looked more like strategic damage control than a genuine clarification. Scenario 2. OWN is distancing itself to avoid lawsuits. There have been rumors about legal threats tied to the show, particularly from YouTubers like Black Titanic, who have raised concerns about behind-the-scenes drama and how producers allegedly cover for certain cast members. If OWN is trying to limit its legal exposure, it makes sense that they would want to distance themselves from Carlos's production company. By claiming that Carlos doesn't control casting, they're separating themselves from the controversies tied to the talent. But if this is the case, it feels like they're rewriting history after the fact. Scenario 3. There's a third party pulling strings behind the scenes. Networks and production companies often use casting agencies or talent teams to scout potential stars. It's possible that neither Carlos nor OWN are the sole decision makers. Maybe there's another layer involved, people we don't see who handle approvals, contracts, and background checks. That would explain why no one wants to take full accountability, but it also complicates things. If fans don't know who's really in charge, how do they know who to hold accountable when something goes wrong? No matter which scenario you believe, one thing is clear: this situation is much deeper than a simple case of miscommunication. The drama behind the scenes is messier than some of the reunion showdowns, and fans are starting to catch on. Let's zoom out for a second. This isn't just about one producer or one casting decision. This is about trust. Reality TV is built on the idea that what you're watching is real, that the people on screen are genuine. Fans invest their time and emotions because they believe the drama and relationships they see on screen have some foundation in truth. When producers act like they're in control, like Carlos did for years, but later change the narrative, it leaves viewers feeling like they've been misled. Carlos built his brand on being the king of reality TV, someone who wasn't afraid to bring out the realness in his cast. His podcast interviews and social media presence reinforced this image. So when he suddenly distances himself from the mess, especially when things get complicated, it doesn't sit well with the fans who supported him. OWN isn't off the hook either. Their silence during crucial moments and their sudden clarification of roles after years of letting Carlos take the credit feels like selective accountability. At the end of the day, fans watch reality TV for the drama, yes, but also for the relationships, the personal growth, and the rawness that the genre promises. When producers start dodging questions or playing the blame game, it taints the entire experience. So now we're handing the mic to you. Do you think Carlos King had more control over the show than he admits? Or is OWN trying to clean up their mess by shifting the blame? Let us know in the comments. Hit that like button if you're tired of the smoke and mirrors, and don't forget to subscribe because this story is far from over. Alright, now that we've broken it all down, we want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Carlos King had more power behind the scenes than he's letting on? Or is OWN really just cleaning up their own mess? Could there be another layer to this whole situation that we're missing? With so many contradictions, it's hard to know who's telling the truth, and the drama just keeps building. One thing's for sure, reality TV is never as simple as it looks, and behind-the-scenes drama can sometimes be more intense than what we see on screen. Whether it's casting decisions, legal battles, or shifting narratives, this whole situation has left fans questioning everything they thought they knew about the show. If you're as curious as we are to see how this all plays out, make sure you hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to the channel for more updates. We're definitely keeping an eye on this story, and trust me, the tea is still boiling. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.